And I think if you know what it's going to feel like, just like anything else, if you know what to expect, then it's easier to contend with. So there's a lot of people that need mental health help. That's what happens. You start off with these huge, uncontrollable emotional storm. That storm will pass. That's number one. Just know that that storm is normal, and that's okay. That's a good thing. In 1955, in America, there was 340 inpatient beds for people with mental health issues per 100,000 people. In 2007, it was 17 beds per 100,000. So the mental health capacity for treatment in America is gone down in a 95%. And there are some legitimate reasons why this happened. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that people were getting put in these institutions, and there were some horrible abuses that were going on in some of these mental institutions, people being committed that didn't want to be in there, people that were abused once they were in there, people that could never get out of there. And there was a backlash against that. There's a lot of people that need mental health help, and there's just not a great place to get it. What has that done to all the other aspects of mental health? What about the outpatient people? How many doctors used to be ready to help somebody that was feeling depressed or was feeling angry? There probably were a lot more doctors back then that had the capability of treating those things. So we've really shut down our capacity to help people from a mental health perspective. And mental health treatment is not an easy thing to do. It can take an extended period of time to get someone sorted to a point where they're able to go out and contribute to society. So yeah, I'd be interested to know those numbers. And even from what you're saying right now, my guess is England's probably doing a better job of getting people the help that they need. Is it possible to take too much ownership? The answer is yes. And that is, if I'm in charge and you're working for me and I take so much ownership over a mission or over a project that you don't feel like you have any input at all, then I've taken too much ownership. As far as an individual person, there's going to be things in your life that you don't have control over. And one of the early questions that I got asked about this, like for instance, someone gets a terrible disease, and or their kids gets a terrible disease, a random disease that's through no fault of anyone, the kid gets sick or the person gets sick. And no, there's nothing you can do about that. What you can take ownership, though, is how you respond to that situation. And so that's what you have to do. There's things that you can control. There's things you can't control. Now, I will tell you that human beings can control a lot more than they think they can. And oftentimes it's pretty easy just to say, oh, that's not me. That's not on me. And I think that's the whole genesis of the idea of extreme ownership, is most of the time, or much of the time, people say that's not my fault. There's nothing I can do about that. And more often than people think, there is something you can do about it, and it is your fault. So if you're working for me and you don't show up on time, or you're not professional when you're conducting your briefs, I need to say something to you, and I need to take ownership of the fact that I haven't made it clear that, hey, you need to show up on time, and hey, you need to be more professional, and hey, you need to wear the right uniform or dress the part. I need to take ownership of that. And maybe if I do, and I talk to you and we discuss why it's important, and you say, oh yeah, I really didn't think about that, and you change your ways and you get on board and you start showing up on time, you start acting more professional, it's great, we solve the problem. There's also a chance that you're late again, or you show up, with booze on your breath or whatever, and we're meeting with a client and I say, hey, Chris, you can't do this. Look, I'm serious. You cannot act this way. This reflects bad on all of us. And and I might even say, listen, if you keep this up, you're not even gonna be working here anymore. I'm gonna have to get rid of you. You say, no, I love working with you. It's gonna be great. I won't do it again. And maybe that solves your problem. Or maybe you're late again, or you continue to act unprofessionally, and then I'm gonna get rid of you. I'm gonna say, hey, Chris, look, I talked to you. I tried to explain this to you. And at a certain point, this job isn't for you. So that can happen. And I have to take ownership of the fact that you are actually not capable of doing this job that I've asked you. So that's fine. Same thing can happen in a relationship, right? Look, if you're in a relationship with someone and you're bickering about where we're going to go for dinner, or you came home late from work and all you do is, well, I've been working all day. You should respect the fact that I've been working all day. Like that's actually on you. That's actually on you. And you can make adjustments to that. Now, can you get to a point in a relationship where the other person is not a good fit for you? And at some point you say, you know what? I've made these adjustments. I've come home, on time. I've texted you when I was going to be late. and these other things are coming up, and you say, you know what, I don't think this is working, and I don't think this is a good relationship. So at a certain point, you say, okay, I've made the adjustments that I can make, and I have to take ownership of the fact that we're not a good match. So yeah, there's plenty of times where taking ownership means actually solving the problem, not continuing to pour the problem down your neck every night, because that's not very helpful to anybody. So yes, at a certain point, you have to make adjustments and you have to move forward. Motivation is a feeling that comes and goes, and it doesn't matter whether it's there or not. Discipline is infinitely more important. So no matter how you feel, get up and do what you're supposed to do. That's it. And that's discipline. It's not motivation. If you only did what you were supposed to do when you were motivated to do it, that's leaving it to chance. But if you're disciplined, you go do what you're supposed to do. That's the way it works. I mean, if you have the discipline to get up and get the things done, well, I often tell a similar story. This is the same thing that you just said, which is, hey, you know, the weekend where you really only had 2 things to do for the weekend, whatever it was, you had to write this thing and you had to answer this other thing. And on Friday, you're like, I'll do it tomorrow. And on Saturday, like, I'll do it. And it's basically hanging over your head the whole weekend. Whereas if you'd just done Friday afternoon, the whole weekend would have been a lot better. So just do the thing. Somebody asked me a question the other day, does courage have to involve risk? And I thought about it a little bit. I don't sit around and think about a lot of stuff, which might be obvious, I guess. But yeah, I think if you're going to get credit for courage, then there has to be some level of risk, whether it's, you know, capital risk in doing something in a business, or physical risk if you're doing something to run into a fire to save somebody. Yeah, so I think courage has to have some kind of risk involved. If you're doing the thing, then that's courage, no matter how you feel inside your little brain. Well, when I'm reading a book, I'm certainly applying the context of my life and my experiences and what I know and what I think I know to that. So I guess, but that's different than sitting around and thinking. I think when I run. I think when I'm doing jiu-jitsu.
Surfing.
Yeah, think when I'm surfing. And those are just, that's a great kind of empty mind. And there's times where I'm running and I have to stop and write something down. You know, I'll pull out because I'll be listening to some music or something. I'll stop and take a note in my iPhone about something that I just thought of. So it happens. Do something that's hard and do it every day. That's one of the nice things about jiu-jitsu. You're going to get choked. You're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to get smashed. You're going to have to tap out. Your ego is going to get abused. Go do that. Go do that. You go for a run, lift, just do hard stuff. And that's a good way to keep that, I guess, fresh. It certainly seems like it does, but there's no guarantee on any of this stuff. There's no guarantee, and it depends on what kind of courage you're talking about. Are we talking about courage where you're going to die, or you could possibly die, or is that what we're calling courage? Because there's people that have come from every walk of life that have stepped up in that situation, and there's people that have come from every walk of life and have failed in that situation. So if you're talking life or death, yeah, I think you actually have to get to someone that is sort of good with dying and they're okay with it, and then they're going to have a lot easier time pushing into that fold if it shows up.